Good afternoon to you. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome, Africa and the world. My name is Sifiso Mahlangu. Welcome to Politiki. I am your host this afternoon. I have about almost an hour and a half to talk politics with you, live from the Galaxy Universal Studios in Midrand, Johannesburg. I'm talking to the ambassador, Moroccan ambassador to South Africa, about the COVID-19 pandemic in Africa, what we should hope for, and the Pan-Africanist agenda. Later on in the show, I have one of the new MPs from the ANC, Mr. Thabo Motle, joins me on the show to discuss the panel in looking into the removal of the public protector. Is it a legal structure? Is it a constitutional structure? Or is it the beaming of ANC factions again? This afternoon, we'll also be paying homage to Isitalandwe, Mr. Andrew Mlangeni, who passed away last week. We expect MKMVA President Mr. Kebi Mapatso to talk on the legacy of Mr. Andrew Mlangeni and if the funeral of Mr. Mlangeni is being factionalized again. We've seen that with the passing of another Stalandwe, Mr. Ahmed Kathrada. So these are the conversations we have this afternoon. Whichever country you're watching from, or even from your phone, on the palm of your hand, you have with me this conversation just for about more than an hour. This is Politiki. This is where we get into the hardcore root of politics in South Africa and in the African continent. Good afternoon to you. Ambassador, welcome you to the show.
Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here in South Africa, a very important country for Morocco, historical country, a country with whom Morocco is seeking to build bridges of cooperation, of solidarity, in order to work together to face the challenges that are common to all of us: economic, pandemic, development. And I think we have no more choice than to talk together, to work together, to plan together in order to build up a prosperous and audacious Africa. This is my mission here as ambassador of His Majesty King Mohammed VI. This is the vision of the King towards this place of the continent, and I am committed to fulfill this mission in order to build, I said, prosperous, audacious, but stable Africa. Because today we are all targeted by many challenges: terrorism, economic development, youth, violence against women, amongst other priorities that we seek to work with our partners from South Africa.
Assalamu alaikum. I thank you for coming to chat with me this afternoon.
I'm very happy to meet a very able, I would say, diplomat, politician. I can see you know all the topics. So let me assure you that I'm a little bit afraid, a little bit destabilized, because I just should be. But anyhow, we'll try to respond to the expectations of both countries, both people, to build up strong relations between our two countries.
Before my introduction, you were joking with me that you've spoken on CNN, on Al Jazeera, to almost every platform, but you've never spoken on Galaxy. So this is your first time. Just for the pleasure of my viewership, give us an introduction on some of the work you've done. I am aware from reading a profile that you were the advisor to His Majesty the King. You've served as Secretary General in your country. Just give me a glimpse into your long and luxurious profile.
Yeah, I have a modest career, 40 years of foreign policy. I started in 1978 as a young diplomat. I was trained in the Foreign Ministry of Morocco. It's a very important foreign ministry in Africa. I served in the cabinet of the minister in the beginning. Then I started my career as a consul general in Spain, in Barcelona, in 1992 to 96. Then I went as ambassador to Colombia in the very difficult times of Colombia, 96. And then from there I went to ambassador to Chile, again Latin America. and then ambassador to Mexico, and covering all the Central American states. I was covering also Panama and Ecuador from Colombia. And then I came back to Morocco in 2003 as a DG for political affairs. I stayed at least 10 years in the foreign ministry as Director General, but also as Secretary General of the ministry. Then I was elected as Secretary General of the Mediterranean Union, which is an organization was built in order to bridge the relations between Europe and the North African countries within the what we call the Barcelona process. It was in Barcelona itself. And then I came back as a Minister of Foreign Affairs delegate in the Moroccan government. I stayed there for some years, and then I was a member of the cabinet of His Majesty the King Mohammed VI until I was
sent to South Africa.
South Africa, for us, it's a priority. It was a commitment that was made by His Majesty and the South African President in order to rebuild, to reshape, to reinforce the relation between.
Let's talk about these two countries, Morocco and King Mohammed VI, and South Africa, which is a country hailed as one of the countries with the greatest constitution in the world. Do you think that there are vast differences between the countries? How do we reconcile them? Often in conversations with ambassadors and diplomats, they give us such a good impression about the two countries, you know, how we work together, cooperation, collaboration. And quite frankly, a lot of those things are untrue.
No.
What have you done to reconcile the two countries, as different as they are?
Well, let me say at the beginning that Morocco and South Africa are two important countries in Africa. Important, democratic, and also with institutions, with instruments that help them to work together. Two, we have a common history. Morocco, one of the founding fathers of the African Union. Remember Casablanca Conference, yes, that gathered in Nkrumah. It was the starting block of the African Union today. Two, we have a common history, and this is a beautiful history. Nelson Mandela was in Morocco from 60, before he was jailed in Robben Island between 60 and 62. He came to Morocco to seek support, to seek military support also, but also training. And he stayed in the region of Oujda, at the east of Morocco, closer to Algerian borders. And there he was trained for years, and he recognized this in his inauguration as president, that the important help and support he had for Morocco. And there, in the Moroccan territory near Oujda and Berkane, he met, because at that time Morocco also was supporting not only Mandela, but also supporting the Algerian people, which were under French colonialism, to get, to get their freedom and the independence. And he met in this Moroccan territory, in these training camps, the leaders of the Algerian Revolution, Boumediene, Bouteflika, and so on. That some of them were like the late President Bouteflika, were born in Morocco and still have their house. So our solidarity, and this is not, you are right to mention, our narrative is not known in this region. Morocco supported not only the Algerian in their just struggle against the French occupation, but also South Africa against apartheid and colonization. And something that you must also know, in the 60s, Morocco hosted the first conference of liberation movement that were fighting against the Portuguese colonies, Guinea-Bissau, Mozambique, Angola, and so on. And this was in Morocco, at the time of the King Mohammed V that they started their struggle, and they had support. And I remember at that time I was 7 years, I remember and seen that in the cinema, that the movement of Portuguese liberation movement gathered in Morocco. So this history is important. Today, we are the most, and this is the most important countries in the African Union as far as business is concerned, as far as we have successful democracies.
How do you respond, Ambassador, to some of the views and the narratives out there in the world that say there is a lack of human rights in Morocco because of the atrocities of tribal authority displayed by the king, a king you were an advisor to? South Africa believes in human rights, as you know. Yes. We don't have a sterling record, of course. Yeah. But how do you respond to the naysayers against your government?
Misconception. Morocco is a leader in human rights. It's been recognized by the UN. Even the South African High Commissioner for Human Rights, Nadi Pillay, recognized that Morocco is one of the leaders in human rights, because we have today a very modern constitution. The human rights are enshrined in our constitution. It's important. We have no complex, no taboos as far as human rights, because we, and myself, one of the militants in the youth organization who fought, like in South Africa, for the human rights. And today, thanks to the leadership and the vision of the king, Morocco is one of the leaders in human rights. Gender equality is in our constitution. And give me some countries in the Arab and Muslim world that have the gender equality in constitution. We have
the recognition of women, you've stated.
Yes.
The recognition of labor rights.
Labor rights, but more than that. And today we have a council on human rights in Morocco. It's an independent body that see and controls if human rights are implemented, and this is very important. And internationally, you see the report of the UN Nations Commissioner for High Refugees, for Human Rights, had said that Morocco has received more than 15 procedures of human rights. So we have very good interaction with Geneva organizations as far. So we are doing this not because our partners ask us. We're doing this because our people fought for that. Our people is fighting for human rights. So today, for us, it's no complex, no taboos. Human rights are in our constitution, our DNA.
Well, for it to be in the constitution is one thing, but the execution of that Bill of Rights is something different.
We have in Morocco, we have debate about all the issues. We have no complex about this issue. Gender equality, heritage in Islam, in law, equality. There's a big debate.
Issues of gender and sexuality.
Everything. Everything is the death penalty. All these issues have been dealt with in Morocco within responsibility. And we have no complex. We have nothing to hide. At the contrary. But there is a lot of misconceptions about Morocco. But Morocco did its own homework. We saw the Arab Spring. We didn't resist change in our country. We saw change as an opportunity to move forward. So today, and we recognize even Morocco in its constitution. Tell me cite me any government in the region or country in the region that it has in its constitution and recognize that we are Arab, we are Muslims, we are African, we have a Jew dimension and Mediterranean. So this is what makes today Morocco a player, an actor in the international field, because we have a diverse identity which help us to play a role not only in Africa, but also in the Mediterranean, with Europe, within the Arab world. So as far as human rights, we are not, of course, sometimes there could be some, but we have the institutions, we had the organizations that correct this thing.
When you look at South Africa, do you consider that, and I know you're a diplomat, you're
Yes.
going to be,
Yeah.
to
No,
be timid with the
yeah,
responses. But when you look at South Africa, do you think that we should be recognized as a country with the greatest constitution in the world? When you read the headlines, when you look at television, living in Pretoria, do you consider that it is fair for the world to believe South Africa has the greatest constitution?
Well, South Africa has a history, has a very sad history, and you were able to compromise and to design something for your people. It's important because it has a very difficult. As you ask me this question, I will just share with you something, and this is what they requested me. Some organizations here in South Africa to contribute as Morocco, as an embassy, on this, to raise awareness about this issue, again, of violence against women in the pandemic. And the President Ramaphosa, the Vice President, have insisted that this is a big pandemic, second pandemic in South Africa, violence against women. So they have requested Morocco, because of its experience, to contribute, to raise awareness and try to see how we can work together to not stop, but at least work together to find some tools, because, and you agree with me that this violence against women and against children are basic human rights. So this is, I think, that shows that Morocco is working, is trying to bring its contribution, and people request the contribution of Morocco in this awareness on sexual violence against women.
Now we're in a global pandemic, and of course Morocco is not immune to that, and neither is South Africa. How do you see this pan out in the African continent?
Yes.
According to your view, Ambassador, do you think there is a readiness from the African continent to deal with this pandemic comprehensively?
Yeah, definitely. This is a major geopolitical turning point in Africa, in order to work together for the development and the prosperity of the continent. Let me give you one small example. We are the only country of the continent that have sent to more than 20 countries planes with support aid, masks, gel, medicine to fight the pandemic. We did it because it is the continuation of our spirit of solidarity with the African country. So everybody was happy to see the Moroccan planes all over, in Eswatini, in Malawi, in Mozambique, in Angola. This shows that, and this was done thanks to the vision of the King, that we should show solidarity in this period with our brothers and African sisters. Now, your question is key. What we need, in fact, we need a concerted and a continental management of the pandemic. We as Africans, and I think we have to the most important thing for us today is how to build out our economies, how to create jobs, how to finance economy. And this, we cannot do it if we don't have the vision, the leadership, and the commitment. We need to work together, as I say in the beginning. So we need courage and dedication at the center of our actions to fight this pandemic.
I think the African continent is plagued by wars,
yes,
by terror in some parts,
yes,
but by poverty and famine,
exactly,
which has been a long-standing issue.
Yeah.
Do you think that we should be accepting support from the West, the same West that brings us medicine, but the same West that sells us arms? Should we not look at our former colonial countries as colonizers and stop having a handout to say America will give us this and that? Isn't it time that South Africa and the African continent collaboratively, Ambassador, works together and does not continue to, lack of a better word, prostitute or sell itself to Western imperialists?
I think I completely agree with you. we can work with our partners, China, Europe, America, but we need to do our homework internally from an African perspective. We need to shape first the African Union.
Yeah.
We need to speak with one voice, and we need to emerge stronger. But we cannot do this until if unity prevails over division, solidarity over egoism, and lucidity over rhetorical updated strategy. So we need to work together. We need to address the real issues. And this, we need some elements are essential. And you know that as African. Good governance.
From where you're sitting, Ambassador, do you say that the United States is our friend or our foe?
United States could be our partner. I don't believe in friends or enemies. I believe on interest. Diplomacy is about interest. We need to talk with everybody because we need today to reshape the world. And South Africa is in the Security Council.
Clever response. Let's go to a break. Ambassador Joseph Armani back after the break. Don't touch that dial. I'm Sifiso Mahlangu. This is Politiki. See you after the break.
Hello. Being a legal practitioner in South Africa in these challenging times demands lawyers that will help clients beyond legal issues. The ever-changing demands in commerce and tourism require lawyers who have sound and clear business and commercial knowledge, and that's where MB Chabangu Incorporated comes in. Our business, mining, tourism, health, labor, and economic knowledge encapsulated with law and litigation experience gives us an advantage in the legal sphere. Our experience in assisting businesses, government, and various industries with their needs puts us amongst the many progressive and striving law firms in South Africa. Now, to contact our attorneys for assistance with any of the mentioned fields and others, please call us on 012-341-4187 or send us an email on admin@chabangu.co.za. MB Chabangu Incorporated, where problems meet solutions.
Welcome back to Politiki with me, Sifiso Mahlangu, talking all things politics. And again, I'm shooting from the hip this afternoon. I'm in conversation with the Moroccan ambassador to South Africa, Mr. Joseph Amrani. We're talking all things Africa, and just before the break, I was talking about the African unity. Should we look at the West, and in particular the US of A, as our friend or our foe? Ambassador, do you think that the African Union is doing enough? We've got the big capital, the big buildings, the big logos, the African Union. But is the African Union getting to the challenges of the African people?
Yes.
This continent is still ravaged by wars,
Yes, yeah.
by internal fighting, factions, bloodshed, poverty. And erstwhile we have the African Union. Is the African Union really capable of delivering the 2030 Africa medium-term goals?
Well, it is a very important and difficult question at the same time. I think definitely we need a strong African Union. We need, as you say, that African Union can face the challenge, can find the solutions to the ongoing conflicts. And we need, in some, especially in the peace and security, we need to reshape and to revisit the instruments so that they tackle the real issues, the real challenges. We need to build up the economies of Africa. And I think, as I was saying, we should rely, Africa and the African Union should rely on our own capacities, and to demonstrate this commitment in the ground. So today we have a lot of projects, we have free trade agreement, regional integration schemes, but we need a strong leadership.
A lot of those are just policies. But at execution level,
we need
things differently. The African countries are still tied to countries of the West, while these policies still stand. So there's a very big difference, as you know, between policy and execution of that policy.
Exactly. No, I think one of the major outcomes today for Africa is what I call an Africa of health. We should now secure our population. We had this experience of Ebola. We have this experience of COVID-19. I think this should be an opportunity for us to review our policies to fight against corruption.
Do you support the border change, the border opening, or the border closing of a Pan-African state?
Well, when you have to be prepared to open the borders, because when you speak about a free trade agreement, what does it mean? Free circulation of people, of merchandise, and capitals. So these three free circulation have to be prepared. We need time. I think today what is important, and I saw that maybe at the level we should start step-by-step approach at the level of the regional integration scheme, SADC, ECOWAS, CEMAC. We can, try to work on these regional integration schemes. Then, number two, we need to solve the ongoing conflicts in the region, especially in North Africa. For example, the Libyan conflict today is one of the major conflicts we need to fight against terrorism. Against terrorism, we need to fight against terrorism today, because even in the region today, even in South Africa, even the South African region is not safe from the terrorist threat, as you can see in Mozambique and elsewhere, because this, I call them the bad guys, they have strategies through their own narrative to promote the culture of hate, to create instability. In the case of Libya today, I think it's a very important issue, because the situation in Libya is linked to the situation in the Sahel, and we are in program of politics. And today we have in mind the return of the fighters that were in Syria and Iraq to the Libyan region. So again, here we have to as Africans, as people of North Africa, to join efforts in order to find a solution to the ongoing conflicts, respecting the independence and territorial integrity of state. It is up to the Libyan and to solve the issues, because they have a lot of foreign intervention.
Do you think Libya was better under the rule of Muammar Gaddafi?
No, it's not better. Today we have a chaotic situation, and we have a lot of intervention.
The economy was certainly better under Muammar Gaddafi.
Well, Colombia, because it was, but there are other things. There are freedom, etc., etc. So, but today there are a lot of intervention. We have to leave, as you say at the beginning, the Libyan people to decide on their own future. The Libyans, Morocco was always, because the only agreement today on peace and security was designed in Skhirat in Morocco, and Morocco was always ready to bring solution to these conflicts, respecting these parameters: independence, non-intervention, and respect of territorial integrity. The same thing about, the one issue is being discussed, I know, in South Africa, about the Sahara issue. Today, the Sahara issue is within the Security Council, which deals exclusively with these issues, and now we are moving toward a solution of compromise on the basis of the autonomy plan that was presented by Morocco. So it is through compromise, through negotiations, through the respects of the territorial integrity of state that we can move forward. Because the big challenge for us today, as Africans, is how to build consistent economies, how to prevent the more deprived people, because a lot of poverty, you said that earlier, a lot of poverty, and this pandemic, you will see, it will create a lot of inequalities, territorial inequalities, and population-wise inequalities.
In your opinion, Ambassador, do you think this region, SADC, has done enough to save Zimbabwe?
I don't know. I cannot really, really, sincerely, I don't have the good knowledge, but I think there is no room for failed states, and we should all join efforts, SADC or elsewhere, to save failed state, because failed state is corruption, is non-democracy, it's terror in some region, So it's not of the interest of the SADC to have a failed state in Zimbabwe or elsewhere. We need to have strong states, democratic states that comply with the responsibilities of their people.
Former President Thabo Mbeki's 2001 speech said it is up to Zimbabweans to save Zimbabwe. It is up to Zimbabweans to liberate themselves. Now, I can argue that under political science, the feasibility and the possibility thereof. And it sounds like a conversation you're also adhering to, that it is the Libyans that must elect its leadership. It is the Libyans that must fight for the future of Libya. But how possible is that with the Western imperial engagement, with the depth of imperialism and a post-colonialism in the continent? It's never easy to save any of these countries, because by virtue of this knowledge, the African presidents are not just elected by Africans. It is the West that sells arms, it is the West that sells machinery, it is the West that sends donors to run parallel states. Western engagement in this continent is a problem. How do we continue to say, Ambassador, Libyans must sort it out for themselves, Zimbabweans must sort out Zimbabwe's, when there is a great depth of foreign engagement and foreign involvement in these African states?
Okay, in the case of Libya that I know very well, it is in the interest of the Europeans, which are the neighboring countries, to have a stable Libya. Why? It's very obvious, because the chaotic situation created in Libya, it's a threat for Europe as far as migration. Due to the connection between Libya and the Sahel, the big issue of Mali, of Al-Qaeda, Boko Haram, and so on, the terrorist movement are growing. And it is a risk not only for our countries of the Maghreb, the Sahel, but also for Europe. And the result is there. The division, the lack of unity in the Europeans and even other actors had created chaotic situation in the Libyan crisis. And now, nobody is in a position to solve the Libyan. So it is, unity is essential parameter. We cannot think about 2, 3, 4 states. It's nothing. 2, stability and reconciliation. And what we need is to bring the Libyans to work together, to agree. They have worked a long time ago in Skhirat. They have cooked something which was not implemented in the ground, because, as you said, there were no instruments, no civil society, no parliament, and we need to work, we need to help them, we need to accompany them. It's not in our interest.
The fact that Mark Thatcher Margaret Thatcher's son,
Yeah.
Mark Thatcher, tried to have a coup or a hostile takeover of Equatorial Guinea
Yes.
in what we call a democratic dispensation in South Africa, about 14 years back or so, should concern the continent. If the son of a former British leader thinks they can still have a hostile takeover or a coup of an African state in about 2005 should concern the entire continent.
Of course.
Because we're open to imperialism.
Listen, we have to take our destiny in our hands, because we need to work together, Africans. We need to fight against the common challenges. Of course, we're against any foreign intervention in our country, in our affairs. It's unacceptable in these days. And that's why we need to work, base our strategy on regional integration schemes, to build strong economy, to put our people together. Nobody can come to divide us. And we need this strong policy. And for this, we need leadership in our continent that works in this direction. We need a vision, our vision as Africans, to take our, and this is, I think, one of the main objective of Muhammad VI. He put Africa in its priority. He put the human development in its priority, because this is the most important, how to respond to the expectation of our young generation. How much job do we create? If we create job, we fight against corruption, we fight against, we have good governance, nobody will come to us. We will build up our continent, and we are rich. We have assets, human resources. We have capacity. We're intelligent. We're not stupid. We know what we're doing. We need to correct these incoherences. Does this word exist in English? Incoherence? Incoherence. So we have some incoherences within the African Union with our vision, and we need to work, because now we have no time to lose. History is knocking at our doors, or we are at the level of the expectation of our young generation, or we fade. So we have no other choice than work together, because this pandemic has showed our shortcomings in good governance, in health, in economics, and the big fight now we're going to all face together is how to build the economies, where we're going to get the money to finance the reconstruction after Corona.
I wouldn't be a good journalist if I didn't ask for Morocco's position on Gaza, the West Bank, and apartheid Israel. What's your position? Is Israel in the wrong in Palestine, or does that land really belong to the Palestinians? Well,
there is a conflict in the region for a long time. Our position is clear. Independent and sovereign state with Jerusalem is as capital, 67 frontiers. It's clear. It is in Morocco, in Rabat, in 1969, after the burning of Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem, in Al-Quds, that was created the Organization of Islamic Conference. It is the King of Morocco, he is the chairman of the Al-Quds Committee. Al-Quds Committee is the Palestinian, is the committee that chairs the Jerusalem. So now, today, we cannot forget about a Palestinian state. It must be a Palestinian, viable, independent with Jerusalem Est. So we need to help the Palestinian to build up their sovereign state. It is one of the fundamentals of the Moroccan foreign policy.
Ambassador Yusuf, thank you for your time.
Thank you. It was a pleasure talking to you.
All right. Cooperation between South Africa and Morocco continues under the pandemic. How are you, as a joint pair country, going to attempt to resolve the pandemic?
Yes, we are working together. My mission in South Africa is in 3 levels. First, to reinforce the political dialogue, both bilaterally and at the level of the African Union. The second dimension of my action is economy, and I think how to bring people together, business, and we are very happy to see that in last year, one of the major investments in Morocco was from South Africa. Salam bought the whole Moroccan insurance company. And also this year, another company had made a very important $50 million. It's important, but the first one was very much most important. So I can have the figures. I don't remind them very well, but I think business. And the third, for me, is very important, is people-to-people interaction. So let's our artists, our business community, our civil society work together to build bridges of understanding, bridges of solidarity that can, bring us together to work not only for the bilateral relations, but we are two very successful economies. Morocco in the north of Africa, we thanks to to what we have achieved, a lot of investment, infrastructure. We have built highways, high-speed train infrastructure. We have the major automotive industry in the continent. So we are close to Europe, and you are close to SADC. So these two countries can work together to build up an audacious and prosperous Africa. And it is only through this challenge that we can achieve prosperity for our continent.
Thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
Ambassador Yusuf Amrani, the South African ambassador, Moroccan ambassador to South Africa, speaking about African unity under the times of the COVID-19 pandemic. We talked a little on Israel, the Palestinian war, African unity, touched a bit on Morocco and Libya, Zimbabwe, Zimbabweans for Zimbabwe, or must we all get involved in fighting for the African people? After the break, young ANC MP Thabo Motle speaks on the terms of reference, the new panel set up for the removal of the public protector. ANC games again, or a real reason to debate. All of this on Politiki here on Channel 500. If you're watching from your phone, charge your device. It's going to get heated after this. See you after the break.
Yeah,
Welcome back to Politiki. We're talking all things politics. Right now in this session, Thabo Motle, Member of Parliament for the African National Congress, one of the new kids on the block to join the 6th Parliament, and we're having a conversation on the new panel set up to remove the public protector. Is the ANC up to their games again to remove the public protector? We do know she's released adverse findings against President Cyril Ramaphosa and Mr. Pravin Gordhan. That conversation is happening right now. Mr. Motle, assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Yeah, welcome to the show.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah, it's good to see you. Yeah, last time I saw you was at another station, another place.
Yeah, no, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, good to see you. New panel set up in Parliament for the removal of the public protector. Man, you got to tell me, what's happening down there, man?
Okay, look, it's a process. Remember, the ANC has not taken a decision to remove the public protector. They have actually, out of their deliberation, indicated that they support the Chapter 9 institution, they support the public protector. But Parliament has undertaken a process which is led by the Speaker. Firstly, the Parliament has established a committee that develop rules that seek to empower Parliament to deal with any Chapter 9 institution that has got complaints, because there were no rules initially to remove not only the public protector, any Chapter 9 incumbent. So the rules were passed by Parliament. From that process, it has got 3 legs. After passing the rule, then the Speaker is seized with the responsibility to establish a team, whether you call it a team or you call it a panel or you call it a commission of some sort, or a team of 3 people that must then receive complaints. And after receiving complaints, what must happen? Whoever the complaints are charged against, that person must be able to have representation, provide evidence into that. In the case of public protector, she must make a representation to that particular panel to state her facts or side of the story on those allegations or complaints against the public protector. Then the process must then go back. That panel must then report to the Speaker of Parliament, who in turn must then report to Parliament. So it's a lengthy process. It's a lengthy process that needs empirical evidence on any complaint or allegation that is laid against any
Isn't it
institution.
odd that the ANC, who's the leader of government and the leader of society, hasn't pronounced a position on whether the public protector should stay or go? Of course, not to assume that it is the ANC that appointed the public protector. There was an interview and all political parties were therefore involved. The EFF has taken a position that the public protector is going nowhere. And there is a narrative, Mr. Motle, out there in society that the only reason a faction of the ANC wants the public protector to go is because she has touched the untouchables, and of course she's found against Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa and Pravin Gordhan. How do you respond to that?
Look, my understanding and the exposition of the ANC is that no one is above the law, no one is untouchable. If there's anything that cannot be touched, it should be the ANC, not members of the ANC or employees of the ANC. So no one is above the law. The public protector is well within her rights to investigate anyone, including the president, or whether it's the speaker herself, myself, or anyone. It doesn't matter which faction you belong to or you envy to belong to. That's immaterial. Law is law, and all members of the ANC, they are well aware of that fact that if there's anything unto them, they must comply with the law, whether it's public protector or it's the courts within these countries. You must be able to comply with the law. Therefore, it is incumbent upon the public protector to do his job without being biased. So whether he is investigating, well, there might be a feeling if you feel that you are under siege, but your feeling cannot supersede the decision of the ANC, because the ANC at this point has not said to the caucus of the ANC in Parliament, you must go and remove the public protector. I think it is public knowledge that the ANC has not taken that decision.
But of course, the public protector was opposed by the president, in so much as saying he didn't have the powers to discipline Mr. Pravin Gordhan. Of course, he has the power to discipline Pravin Gordhan. He appointed Pravin Gordhan. We know that act from the Constitution. We also know that from the Public Protectors Act, that the recommendations of the public protector are legally binding. It was that way with Thuli Madonsela. Why are we having this discussion 3-4 years later? Because it's another individual in that place. When it was Thuli Madonsela versus President Jacob Zuma, the narrative was different. Now it's Busisiwe Mkhwebane versus Cyril Ramaphosa and Pravin Gordhan, and now we're talking about removal of the public protector. Is it the ANC faction speaking here?
Look, I don't want to venture into whether it's factions or not, but what we must not do, I think, as the ANC, is to set the wrong precedents. Because we respected Thuli Madonsela and how she handled issues against the president, the former president of the ANC. Now, we've got a responsibility as members of the ANC. As we had the president, the responsibility before to defend President Zuma, we'll continue to defend any president of the ANC against any agenda that seeks to delegitimize any president of the ANC. However, because we are the ruling party, and remember this Chapter 9 institution, it's our Chapter 9 institution. We must equally protect the very same Chapter 9 institution. So I don't want to venture into faction to say it was Thuli Madonsela versus Jacob Zuma. Now it's Busisiwe Mkhwebane versus President Cyril Ramaphosa.
The public protector, Mr. Motle, is Busisiwe Mkhwebane, who has investigated as equipped by the Constitution, and she found against President Cyril Ramaphosa. It's not a it's euphemism.
It's not a fallacy. You are stating facts. Yeah. And the president is also well within his right to challenge those findings through the court processes, and we must respect that process. Whether the courts are ruling in favor of how they react in terms of how they dealt with Jacob Zuma, and now with the incumbent president, it's something else. It's in the public domain. Society is debating that, to say, but the manner in which the courts of this country are dealing with matters against President Cyril Ramaphosa is not how they dealt with them when they dealt with them against President Zuma.
If you take me into your confidence, do you think the courts are behaving differently to Cyril Ramaphosa as opposed to Jacob Zuma?
But if you look at the patterns of how they deal with matters, you'll simply see that there's a difference in how they dealt with issues.
In favor of who?
I can't say in favor of who, but in terms of the patterns, you can see there's a different.
Okay. Let's talk RET. You're on the deep end, I see the radical economic transformation. dead or alive. I had a conversation a few weeks ago with NEC member Malusi Gigaba, who says RET is the way, and it is the defendable policy of the ANC. Do you think in this particular session, or in this portal of our lives, you're seeing the diminish of radical economic transformation in favor of other attractions or other seemingly neoliberal policies in the Congress?
Well, as you correctly indicate that it is a policy position of the ANC, which was adopted in Nazareth, to say we must radically transform the economy so that it is reflective of our demographics or our societal geographical dispensation. So indeed it's a policy that we assist with as the ANC, and we must ensure that we implement it without fail, because if we don't, then the status quo will remain, and the disparities between those that are in charge today and those that we seek to transform their life will continue to widen. So radical economic transformation is the future, and it must happen, and it must happen now.
Whether or not some sectors of our society oppose it, I say this because the act that speaks to black industrialization at ESCOM's headquarters, so far as procurement is concerned, was removed. So, and I know that in your document, your policy document, suggestively, RET talks to black industrialization and 50+1% of all procurement projects at SOEs. Those particular policies at SOEs has been removed. How do you continue to say RET is the policy, but in practice, so far as the acts in state-owned enterprises, RET is not the way?
Look, ANC has deployed comrades to serve in their different capacities, in different portfolios in the executive. Therefore, they have the responsibility, whether they feel that they did not support the economic transformation agenda towards a Nazareth conference or not, it's immaterial. It is their responsibility to ensure if they are allowing these things to happen in state-owned entities, they are failing their very same organization that has deployed them, and they are taking us backwards, because it means they are supporting the status quo. It means those that are in control of the economy today, they will continue to be in control for many years to come, whilst our people continue to languish in poverty. The inequalities within society continues to deepen, and we have seen how COVID-19 has also deepened the socio-economic crisis within society. Therefore, we've got a policy that makes it possible to us. For an example, in the portfolio committee where I'm sitting, I'm a whip of the defense portfolio committee. We made it very clear to the executive to say, at the end of this process, from time to time, they must tell us, with the COVID funds, we will need to see whether young people are benefiting, veterans are benefiting, historically disadvantaged people are benefiting from this program that they will be running.
At the moment, it's the spokesperson to the president who's allegedly benefiting. That is the record out there.
Yeah, it's still allegation at this stage. They need to be investigated.
Allegedly, yes.
They must be investigated. We must find facts, and we'll be able to comment when there are facts. At this stage, it's still allegation. But remember, allegations are based on list that is making rounds. The question is, out of that list, if we want to transform the economy, is it white people that are benefiting from that particular list, or is it black, young, historically disadvantaged individual? If it is historically disadvantaged individual, what is the problem? It might not be me or somebody who's close to me who benefited from those procurement, but if the policy of the ANC was implemented, so what is the problem? Because it means somebody's life has been transformed through those transactions.
Okay, the COVID-19 pandemic appears to bring another state of commission upon it. I expect in about a year or two's time, you and I will have a conversation about the Judicial Commission of Inquiry into the COVID-19 funds. At this point, as an ANC member and perhaps as a member of parliament, is there deep concern of the way that 500 billion was used?
Well, concern should always be, we assist as, I think, as members of parliament, we have a responsibility to play oversight over that particular 500 billion to make sure that it is used effectively and efficiently to ensure that it addresses the challenges that we are faced with. It must not be diverted to enrich certain people who escalate prices, so forth and so on. We have a responsibility to play oversight and ensure that it is used effectively to ensure that we fight this invisible enemy. Therefore, in that process, there will be procurement. Then the policy position of the ANC must always guide ANC deployees at all material time to ensure that instead of giving a SFISO company 800 million, why don't you divide it into 5 million, 5 million? It will be spread. You shall have empowered young people, women, veterans, historically, a number of them shall have benefited from that procurement system instead of giving 1%, because that's what we seek to advance.
You were in the NEC of the Youth League in the time of President Colin Maine. As an NEC member of the Youth League, should I say you failed to lead the Youth League to conference? Was that a failure?
Look, it was not necessarily a failure, but we were confronted with various challenges to an extent where the NEC of the ANC then took a decision to deploy a task team that was meant to assist us. So if it was a failure, it was not only a failure of the Youth League, because we had a team that was deployed to assist us, which ultimately could not assist us to deliver a conference, and the NEC ultimately took another decision to dissolve our NEC.
So you're saying it's not necessarily the failure of the NEC Youth League, but in a sense you're subtweeting that Thandi Mahambe-Hlala has a case to answer for because she was the task team leader.
Yes, she was part of the task team. If we failed together with the task team. That's why they had to then go back and revise their decision and take another decision to dissolve us.
Is there a future for the young people of Lembede? Is there a future for the young lions? Honestly, Pule, honestly.
Look, young people must then rise to the occasion and not allow the old guard to dictate who must then lead the ANC Youth League. Young people must rise through their activism. They must be able to rise and take charge and push the current NYTT and the ANC for the conference to sit so that young people can choose their own leaders who will then take the struggle of young people forward.
So it must be the young people in society, you're saying in the ANC, that must desire to elect leadership that will take the country forward. Yes. But how is that done if the advocacy doesn't come from the ruling party, if funds are not given to host an election, if the branches, the COSAS branches, the branches of the youth leagues are not strong enough to lead you to conference? Even if Luthuli House says, here, have a conference, how are you going to adventure that?
Look, Luthuli House will not say, go and have a conference while internally there was no work that was undertaken to ensure that you've got branches across the country. You will meet the threshold to have that particular conference. But branches of the ANC Youth League have never ceased to exist. They've always been in existence, whether you had challenges at the national level or you have challenges at the provincial level or regional level, branches always exist. So the branches are there of the ANC Youth League. It is incumbent upon those who lead those branches to raise, not wait for RECs or wait for PEC to give them direction. They must rise and reclaim what is theirs.
It's odd also that the president of the Youth League was sent to Parliament again, though he later resigned. The deputy president is now deputy minister.
The Secretary General.
The Secretary General is a deputy minister. The DSG is an MEC. You know, have these individuals sold out? You've taken up senior positions. People are in Parliament, and it seems like the young kids of Lembete are forgotten. What should the young people who endeavor to be in the Youth League think today when their top six eventually is in senior positions and you are no longer addressing the youth in the country? That is a type of selling out.
No, it's not. It's not at all. Remember, we've got a responsibility to influence the ANC. Now, how do you then influence the ANC when you are outside? Because our deployment, I'm including myself, the deployment of the Deputy President, the Secretary General, former Secretary General Njabule Nzungza, it's an achievement to us. Because today when we want to influence the direction that the Home Affairs Department must take, we are able to talk to Njabule directly. He can relate with young people. We can talk to Thandi Moraka directly, and young people have got access to Thandi Moraka. Now, if we sit back and say, the ANC must deploy only older generation because we were serving in the NEC, therefore we cannot be deployed into any strategic position, that is selling out according to me, because young people will have no one to represent them. They cannot relate with anyone. Therefore, because they hold strategic position today, it is their responsibility to ensure that out of all the system, whatever that aspirations that young people have, they are addressed through those deployment.
The Youth League did not die with the departure of Floyd Chibambu and Julius Malema.
No, it did not die. It did not die. They departed, and actually they left with some of the policy position of the ANC Youth League. The ANC Youth League remained. It might have had a different character of leadership after Julius Malema and his company. So I'm saying his company because he's operating in yeah. So the ANC Youth League remained. It was charged with the responsibility to take the baton and run with it. And fortunately or unfortunately, young people criticized it in whichever way they criticized. But there was much that was done by that particular Youth League. Remember, it advocated for removal of entry requirements for employment. I think yes, it won that battle, and there were many battles. We also fought for 40%. We've seen how many councils, provincial legislature, and the national parliament has the ANC has responded to that particular call that was made by the ANC Youth League, that was led by President Mukoni Maile.
So you also said set up a venture into the seizing of ABSA, or the call for ABSA to return.
Yes, we organized that march. Yes, we organized that march. We mobilized the young people. We filled the street of Joburg. So we were on course. It's just that society expected much higher for us to pitch at the level of Julius Malema, but we are not that NEC. We're an NEC that was led by President Maine, who was a different character from Julius Malema. And I think as the ANC Youth League or the ANC in general, we must appreciate the fact that we've got different characters within the organization that will ascend from time to time as there's that particular call. And comparing them in terms of their stature or character, I think it's unfair. We must be able to compare leaders in terms of the progress or advancement they make in terms of implementation of policies of the organization, so forth and so on. For an example, Mbalula is saying he's forever young. We must now check whether he is in transport, how many young people during this time of COVID-19 have benefited from their procurement as transport. If he's got the young people closer to his heart, he must be able to say, no, young people must be taken care of. They must be able to benefit their 30% or set aside or whatever that it can be. You can't be young theoretically and in practically you are something else.
Yeah. So that's a challenge to Mbawizi. Minister
Minister Tsingitsingi.
Minister Tsingitsingi, Mbawizi, Minister Chaklas. There's a challenge for you in the House. We're expecting Mr. Kebi Mapatsa. It's a no-show. I think the MKMVA president has gone underground again. So I end this particular conversation. Mr. Thabo Motle, you've been a great guest. The shining star of Mpumalanga. So coming from a village and at this age, you've made it to Parliament. What's your message to black young men in this country saying it can be done? Give me a 30-second stint to empower those of us who come from my village, mine and yours, in Mpumalanga. That's your camera.
Yeah, look, we must be driven by activism and the will to transform the life of our people, because our activism in the revolution is basically to ensure that we transform the life of society, our people basically, for the better.
Good to see you. Yeah, come again soon.
Yeah, thank you.
Tada. Okay, that was Thabo Motle, ANC MP, a newcomer in the 6th Parliament, speaking vociferously that the ANC Youth League is not dead. Perhaps it's just taking a sabbatical and the people of Lembede to return. My name is Sifiso Mahlangu. This is Galaxy Universal Network, Channel 500. Thank you for participating in this conversation. Hashtag me, retweet me, let's talk again. Next week, same time, same place. I'm your host. We'll be talking politics again. From me, cold studio in Johannesburg in Midrand. Pray for South Africa. Ngithokoza kakhulu. See you next week.
Galaxy Universal Network, inspiring Africa.